Hey, welcome to Consulting Logistics. I'm joined with Steve Ryan. Steve, how's it going?
Hey, all good. How are you?
Good. So, Steve, before we jump into the whole how optimization creates cost savings, tell me a little bit about yourself, kind of where you were before Aborn, and then we'll jump in a little bit about what you do here at Aborn.
Sure. I'm a data scientist here at Aborn. Started 8 months ago. Came here from Procter & Gamble, working in a brand called The Art of Shaving. Before that, was working in consulting, going to various companies and serving data science roles and accounting and senior financial analyst roles at places like Tufts Health Plan, COSI Restaurant Group, Boston University, a few others.
That's cool. And that's one of the fun things that Aborn has is this whole data scientist. So talk to me a little bit about what you do as a data scientist within freight.
Sure. Well, a lot of what I do is reporting, right? So we have a lot of clients that we work with. We're in a model where we are both the shipper and a consultant to the clients. So the clients are our shippers, and we act as the shipper in the sense where we do all the load planning, all of the optimization, all of the negotiations, and we're sort of acting as a conduit for our clients to try to find better rates and try to find cost savings that are embedded in their shipment data.
Awesome. So a lot of that fun stuff sounds like it's sort of what we're here to talk about today, which is how does optimization really help with cost savings? And it's something interesting because when you say it out loud, like you say that sentence, it seems like a no-brainer, right?
Right.
Optimize is going to create cost savings. But I like going under the hood and kind of truly understanding something. So talk to me about how our process works. I mean, explain it to me like I'm new and trying to just learn this. What do we mean by optimization? What are we gathering? Like let's start with there. What do we gather data-wise that's going to help to be optimized?
Sure. So what we're trying to do within the context of optimization is consolidate the shipments that we receive from our clients across multiple modes. And when I say multiple modes, I mean sometimes we're going to have LTL shipments that are going somewhere near a place where we have shipments going maybe a day earlier or a day later. And we try to look at that and say, is there cost savings embedded in the fact that these places are going to similar places? It's an LTL shipment. Is it possible that we could consolidate that and turn it into a full truckload and find our clients a rate that's lower than it would have been if they were to ship two things at once?
Now, this is just individual clients, right? It's not like our whole portfolio of freight. It's just individually. How does that work? Like, how do we gather that? How do we get that information?
Sure. So we process orders from our clients and we consolidate the loads ourselves here. So a lot of that is done through our load planning department. And what they do is they try to go through loads and say, hey, are there places where these can be optimized? Meaning, is there a cheaper rate if we were to ship two LTL shipments together, or two small parcel shipments together, or three or four for that matter? We're trying to roll those things up in the load planning department. And what we're trying to do with optimization is replace that manual work using an algorithm and saying, hey, we have these shipments with these parameters. So the parameters would be things that come through on an order, right? Like there's a target shipment date. This is how much it weighs. This is how much the items on that order weigh for the total weight of the shipment. This is where it's going. This is, it may need a specific equipment type like refrigerated. It may be hazmat. A lot of parameters that we take in go into that algorithm, and the parameters are from the orders that come through from our clients. And the other parameters that come through, actually excluding orders, would be, hey, what is the rate that we've negotiated on this lane? Is it better to use this rate today? Is it better to combine these two rates and say, hey, from point A to point B, use this rate, and from point B to point C, use this rate? Is it better to use one rate across the lanes? What we're trying to do is check these contract rates against spot rates that we receive and say, hey, is there a better way to combine these to produce cost savings?
So we preach all the time about contracted rates, but this sounds like it's also kind of that next gen type of thinking, right? Where it's, like in theory, you get the negotiated rates because you know that's a steady state data piece, right?
Right.
And that's sort of how that works, or?
So we're using that steady state data piece to support the optimizations that we find. So embedded in any optimization is mileage savings, right? So if you've got two shipments going to two different points that are 50 miles from each other, Can we turn that into one shipment and we tack on that 50 miles? Does that reduce it by, the sum of the two shipments previously? Yes. And then it just tacks on an additional 50 miles to say, hey, this is less than what it would have been if there were two shipments. And then we're able to say, we're not trying to produce the mileage savings first. What we're trying to produce is the lowest rate that we can find using combinatorial optimization, right? So
Right.
we're trying to combine loads, look for the lowest rate or the lowest cost savings or the highest cost savings, and then embedded in that is mileage savings, right? So no matter what, combining these loads, we're going to produce mileage savings.
Right. So thinking and just play dummy with me
Sure.
for this. So typically optimization is going to happen, right? For
Right.
the most part, load planners are always going to kind of look at stuff, and a good load planner should always be thinking, is there a better way to get this from A to B?
Sure.
It's a normal thing.
Right.
But what is the thing that's allowing the algorithm to be able to take that human interaction and also apply machine learning on top of it? What type of technology do we have built in that allows that to happen?
Sure. So technology's really made it possible for some of the things that would never be able to be manually combined in the span that you would have to be a load planner, right? So,
Right.
For example, in the United States, there's 52 million different point-to-point zip code to zip code combinations. So what some of these heuristic algorithms, we can go into that in a second. Some of these heuristic algorithms, what they allow us to do is say, evaluate all these very quickly. What's the quickest point? Let's say we have 6 points on a map. What's the quickest point we can get from point A to B to C, and then end up back where we started to get back to our terminal? So that's called the traveling salesman problem. And what's changed through heuristic algorithms is I don't think there's not a computer big enough to complete the traveling salesman problem on its own. There's 52 million point-to-point destinations. It would take about 100 years for a computer to actually process that. So what we use is called heuristics, right?
Okay.
What are the things we know where we can reduce computational time? Well, we know it can't go here. We know it can't go there. There's parameters on this shipment. Well, we know we don't need to look at reefer rates. So we know this lane is out. We know this lane is in. It's taking the parameters and reducing things over time. So we don't have to calculate 250,000 different combinations for only a few state-to-state pairs. We're trying to reduce things, pair it off using the parameters that were given in the algorithm.
Okay. So how does this algorithm work? I mean, I guess what's the easy dummy way to show me is it truly just a math problem that's like built into our system? Or how, when we say algorithm, because I hear that thrown around a lot, what does it exactly mean?
So I think that what I like to say is that a heuristic is an algorithm or an algorithm is a heuristic that works all the time. So what's interesting about that is the traveling salesman problem never works all the time and it never produces the same result. I think the closest that somebody got to solving the traveling salesman problem before heuristic analysis was only 55 years ago or something like that. So I think that within the context of computer science. Right. So I'll say that I'm getting lost in thought on that.
No worries. So it basically, oh man, I'm getting lost too on this thing.
And you get too deep into algorithms and then, right. So a heuristic, an algorithm should work all the time, right? So a heuristic is like a shortcut. So
right. It's short. It's making it, like you said, it's eliminating the known quantities.
Right.
So that way the unknown can actually be computerized or be calculated.
Right.
Right.
Right. Correct. Okay. So when they say a heuristic that works all the time is an algorithm, in this sense, it's actually not true. A heuristic's helping us to get to an approximate match in an algorithm. What's the quickest point that we can start from point A and go to point B, going between all these different cities?
Right.
If we were going to circles, so that's the traveling salesman problem at its core. What we're trying to do is using those parameters, using a quicker version of the traveling salesman problem and taking into account not the mileage savings first, but the cost savings. And then embedded in those cost savings, just intrinsically, is going to be mileage savings.
So how is so much, like, you think about
it's a lot. It's mind bending.
Yeah, you stop. You're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like a bunch of questions that come to mind. So when you talk about how the algorithm gets faster, is that what machine learning is, or is that more of the
Yes.
artificial AI? So that's machine learning.
Yeah.
So why does that work? Explain it. Like,
If you could think of like the heuristics that are helping an algorithm,
right.
you could think of if we had some sort of training data or something accurate that we could train a machine learning algorithm with, that heuristic wouldn't be supported by hard-coded assumptions or assumptions that are really just conditional statements. That heuristic algorithm would be supported by intelligence that's gathered by whatever algorithm you choose, whatever may fit the best, but it's being supported by something that's constantly getting better. Given, if you're going to train, so what you do is you train data in a machine learning algorithm, right? So we have this data set that we're going to train it against. So as we do optimizations, what machine learning will help us do is make that heuristic quicker and quicker each time because it's learning and learning each time. So we're training it while we optimize and then learning at the same time. What will make this quicker the next time? What will make this quicker the next time?
So why does it work like that? I guess I had the title of this episode is gonna be like Kyle's a dummy, but
No.
so why does it need to learn? Well, like explain to me why an algorithm, which is essentially just a math equation,
Sure.
right?
Well, yes. So it's a group of things, right? And it depends. Yes, they're all algorithms and they're all backed by algorithms. You could in machine learning, you could try to fit a model, meaning you and I have, a couple columns of data, dates, and then stock prices.
Right.
And then we could, I wouldn't recommend, this being the way people do it. But, we could have stock prices or point of sale data. And what we do is we look at that, we train it and say, hey, given the data that we have that we just trained and the new data we put in, which we know the answer to, how well does that data fit, or the algorithm that we just used fit or predict the data that has already happened in the past? So if we had a straight line like this, if we had training data here, and then if we had test data here, what we would want to do is find an algorithm, which is called fitting a model or fitting an algorithm to data. We would want to find an algorithm that, given this data and given this data, predicted it the best when it didn't have this sample data. So we trained it on this sample data, and then we give it test data, and we see how well these two lines fit. So if we had a bunch of different boxes with algorithms, some of them would be up here, some of them would be here, given that this is the line here that we want. So we know that month over month, the stock price or sales went up like this. We're trying to find an algorithm, given the training data, that best predicts this line to something that we already know, not something in real time. So we're trying to find an algorithm that predicts it the best. Now that might be linear regression or it might be a random forest. But that's just one of the ways to find an algorithm that fits your data. If that makes any sense.
No, it doesn't. Now we just have a bunch of drawings on this.
Sure.
So, okay. So the data set's learning as it goes.
The data set isn't learning. The data set's growing. And our assumptions are getting better and better because we have more data to test it against.
Okay. So you've got the algorithm that TR, and essentially there's nothing in it.
Right.
And then what you're doing is just continuing to add data set to it.
Yes.
So it's getting the correct answer more and more.
You could think of it like tuning up a car, right?
Right.
Or you could think of it like we're putting oil in the car. We're getting the filter changed. That's the algorithm. We're changing things in the algorithm to make it, given the more and more data that we're getting, we're changing the algorithm to better fit the data and to make better predictions given the fact that we have this incrementally growing data set.
So giving me the real world example of this, I guess tell me how does that drawing that you just did,
Sure.
What's that look like in real life?
So a specific example of that in real life would be a couple of things. So one of those would be looking at carrier data and looking at rates and looking for a trend. A really simple thing we could do is say, hey, is there a regional trend? Is there an intra-regional trend for this carrier data? For example, are line hauls going up? Are people using the same fuel schedules when we're negotiating contracts? We're taking that all into account, and then we're putting it into a pricing algorithm and saying, hey, when we get new data in, what do we think this should be rated at given the data that we've had.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
So it's taking the real world application for us isn't just, it's not lagging. It's not lagging information. It's not just like, hey, we know this has to go
Right.
A to B. Is this the best way to do it? It's also the prescriptive where it's looking before the fact
Right.
of like, hey, we need to set rates for this type of lane, put it in the algorithm.
Right. So you can think of it like there's two steps. We're training and optimizing an algorithm, and then we're using it in real time. So an example of using it in real time would be we get 100 to 200 shipments in per day.
Right.
They're similar shipments, and we're optimizing them automatically, meaning we're trying to reduce the manual time spent in load planning, and we're trying to push those loads through in the system already packaged up into loads. So if we had 100 shipments, they come out, they go into one end of the funnel as 100 shipments, and they come out as 50 loads. They're combined correctly using all of our parameters, and they're ready to go. They're tendered out to carriers, and we have the right combo for the day. Now, day after day, with a similar data set, we're able to sort of predict what's going to happen next, or we're able to find those rates quicker than a normal traveling salesman algorithm would, or even a heuristically driven traveling salesman algorithm would.
Right. So this plays into the whole how we talk to everything. So
Right.
this isn't just like a carrier, like we're the negotiated rates and we're doing all this stuff. This is like that whole mindset of taking market intelligence, understanding all that type of stuff,
Right.
understanding what's happening with the actual, and then putting it in an algorithm.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Literally, I'm like learning
It's
on
just
the
the
episode.
Netflix algorithm. You can think of like a pricing algorithm. Netflix, what they're trying to do is
Right.
they're trying to find what are the 5 best options for you, right?
Right.
Given your history. And as the more you click around in Netflix, the more data it's going to gather, and it's going to get better and better at making recommendations to you. So that's what we're trying to do, optimizing loads, right? We're trying to look at shipments and saying,
Right.
the more we see, the better and better recommendations we can make to our clients.
So when we say optimization leads to cost savings, it's not that like post like, hey, I got 100 shipments. I want to see it get transformed down to 50 and then go out like that.
Right.
It really is the before, the during, and the after that's kind of looking at that stuff. And it's really built off of examples.
Right.
So a lot of why giving us data beforehand is extremely important. It isn't just so you get a data audit.
Right.
It's so that our algorithm can really start looking at what's out there, what's available, and really identifying cost savings.
Right. Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What other benefits do people see? What else is there kind of when it comes to this? I know one of the big things I read a lot and hear a lot about, in fact, I mean, even like, was it like 30% of our customers or clients this year in 2019 asked about it, is sustainability. Like what is that a benefit like that optimization kind of leads to? Like what happens there?
Yeah, it is. So sort of like when we're trying to consolidate shipments across multiple modes and try to find the best rate, embedded in that is mileage savings. And embedded in mileage savings is CO2 savings. So what's nice about that is you're able to reduce your CO2 footprint. So, if you had 2 trucks with 2 shipments going to different places and it was 200 miles, if you can reduce that by 100 miles by putting them on one truck to the same place, or if you can reduce it by 25 miles by sort of rerouting the shipments and finding the best combination, that's what's going to really elicit a CO2 response, like in my algorithm, to say, hey, this is how much we just reduced the CO2 footprint by multiplying weight times the amount of miles. People do it a different way, but
Right.
There's a CO2 factor to most of the trucks that we work with. For example, dry and flatbed. I think dry and flatbed is 1.68. I think reefer is obviously a little bit more, has a higher footprint due to the fact that it's reefer. But we look at those things, we reduce mileage, and we combine weight, which is another thing to think about, meaning your CO2 footprint in a truck is the mileage times the weight, right? So when we're combining weight, we're changing that algorithm too. We're putting more weight onto one truck that's going to one place.
Right.
So that's where you really start to see CO2 savings, and it's cool. It's nice to be a greener company and like produce that response and try to get try to help our clients with some of their green initiatives.
Yeah, you even crunched some numbers recently. Like what was our 2019 like green initiative? Like what were we saving in CO2?
I think we saved about 100 metric tons in CO2. in the past 3 years. And I would say, I think that just from some of the optimizations that we've done, I think it was 13 metric tons for 4 of our clients this year. So it's really cool and it's rewarding because then we're able to talk to our clients and help. Some of our clients have green initiatives, either through the state or internal initiatives that they want to reach a certain carbon footprint reduction or reduce their CO2 footprint. So this is a great way to be able to supply them with that data.
And it's cool because it's all gathered right off the bat because it's the optimization. Just
Right.
part of optimization is going to be also that reduction of like CO2 footprint.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Dude, I guarantee there's a billion things I did not go into, I missed, I didn't understand. So I definitely want the audience to reach out to us and let us know what else we can talk about because you're an open book when it comes to all this, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. How can people get in touch with you in case they don't want to wait for the next exciting consulting logistics episode? What's the best way?
Connect with me on LinkedIn or email me at sryan@abornandco.com.
Yeah, I'll include your LinkedIn in the show notes so that way people can click and go connect and definitely connect. I mean, you love talking about all this
that's
stuff.
right.
Cool. Well, Steve, thanks so much for joining me at Consulting
right.
Logistics.
Thank you very much.
See you, man. I know there's something I missed talking about with Steve. So what questions do you have for him? Leave a comment letting me know. And in the meantime, enjoy past episodes of Consulting Logistics and subscribe to us by clicking the subscription button. Thanks for watching Consulting Logistics. I'm Kyle McNaught. Peace.